Okay, so where we left off, again, talking about your search engine optimization. So there are some other strategies that exist in this. So we got through titles, we got through description tags, we got through keyword tags. So now we're going to come down to a couple of other things that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to show you how to do these things really quickly. So the two things that you need to keep in mind when you are trying to drive up your ranking in Google are what Google really cares about. And the two things that you need to keep in mind that Google truly cares about are trust and relevance. And so what they mean by relevance is, and what they think about in terms of relevance is, if somebody does, so for instance, if you go in and you do a keyword search right now and you were to put in lumber Chicago, there's a real good chance that Home Depot is going to come up right away, that Lowe's is going to come up right away, that kind of stuff, because they're relevant. There's a lot of traffic that is going to their sites when people do searches for lumber and Chicago. And it's strictly, it's the click count. I mean, they'd see, okay, 100,000 people today search for lumber and they all went to Home Depot. So that would actually be relevance. So again, it's a relatively high ranking and Google's measuring that. And that's weird because it ends up being sort of a circular issue here. It's like, well, okay, the more it's clicking on it, the more relevant it becomes, and the more relevant it becomes, the more likely people are to click on it because it's showing up in the top of the rankings, but that just is the way it is. So that's what relevance is all about and how you build relevance. The other thing that you're talking about now is trust. And in trust, what we talk about is this, and this trust is really the thing that you guys need to consider more than anything, especially at your stage of the game right now. And what trust has to do with is, if you were, for instance, to say you wanted to buy a new camera, and you ask me, what camera should I buy, Verser? You guys know that I've been in the business for a really long time. You know I generally know my stuff, whatever advice that I gave you would have a relatively high trust factor. Whereas if you went and talked to your 14-year-old niece, she may have some great idea about what camera you should buy. She may have no clue at all. There isn't the trust element that I would have a greater level of trust. You would be able to trust my advice more than hers simply because of me as the source that I am, my credibility. Does that sort of make sense? And so what Google looks at to establish trust is what they call backlinks. And what backlinks really are is they are links that are going from some other place to your website. So for instance, let's say, and this is the way so backlinking becomes this big issue about trust, and it becomes something that really is important for you guys to consider, and it's how do you generate backlinks. So let's say, for instance, Ulrich decides he is going to do a primer on converting digital color images to black and white. He's the black and white guy, and he actually writes either a blog about it or he writes just a small article about it. And then that small article, he sends it to F-stoppers, or he sends it to any of the thousands of online sites that talk about photography and that do tutorials about photography, and they decide to publish him. Well, when they publish his article on doing black and white photography, at the bottom of that article is going to be a link to his website. That is a backlink. And the more esteemed the place is where his backlink lives, the greater the level of trust they have in him. Does that sort of make sense? So if you think about the really big photo bloggers, again, like the F-stoppers is certainly one of them. There's a whole series of them that deal with photography. If you can get published on them, if you can get reference to them. So again, it's anything that you can get that actually establishes your link in a different trusted website that goes directly to your website is considered a huge value in the ranking system that Google's algorithm looks for. Does that sort of make sense to everyone? So how do you do that? There's other ways to do this, and one of the ways that most people will say that one of the most effective ways is if you can do a blog. Now, I'm not a big blogger myself, But what ends up happening in your blog is if your blog takes off and is successful, then what will happen is that anybody who reads your blog who thinks that, oh, so Liz reads Ulrich's blog about doing black and white, and she thinks that I would really like that, so she sends me the link to his website so that I can read his blog about converting stuff to black and white. She's now got a backlink to him. I've now got a backlink to him because I actually clicked on that to actually go to his website. Does that sort of make sense? So blogs become, anything that is published like that can become really valuable. If you're a writer, that's something that you can really leverage. If you're not a writer, I'm not a writer. A blog is actually a worthless thing for me. What we should talk about, though, is, and I was talking to Chelsea about this earlier today, it used to be that if you were a blogger, people would say you had to blog at least once a week, if not twice a week. That is no longer the case. What is also happening now, and what is also being measured by Google's algorithm, is that they are interested in quality over quantity. So one of the most successful bloggers that is actually out in the photosphere right now is blogging once every 4 months. But he puts together this absolutely mind-blowing, mind-numbing, incredibly intense, elaborate post 3 times a year. And again, he's got a huge following, and all of those followers are linking to his blog to actually read them. Those are all considered backlinks. And the more of them that he has, the more that Google actually values his website, the more trusted his website is, and the higher he gets into the rankings. Does that sort of make sense to everyone? So,
who is that photographer?
I've actually got it here. Shoot me a quick email and I'll send you his stuff.
Send it to everybody?
Yes, I'll just put a post. So it's just one of you guys needs to send me an email. I'll put it in a post. So content. Content is not just about written stuff. So this is another thing that happens with Google, and you guys need to be really aware of this one. Google is constantly monitoring your website for changes. It does not like static websites. If you are not reposting new content to your site often, Google flags it that way. And again, they consider it a dead site, or they consider it an abandoned site. So you are constantly having to change images. Well, what does that mean? You know, my guess is that if you're changing your images once every 7 to 10 days, and it doesn't mean a wholesale change of your website, but it does mean that that your website is alive, that your website is functioning, it's breathing, it's living, it's evolving, it's doing all of those things. That is critical in Google's calculation for how high in the rankings that they want to ultimately give to you. So new content is critical, but do not put crap out there, because quality is also an issue with Google in terms of, and don't ask me how they truly measure that part of it. I think it has to do in some measure with the traffic that's going to your website, but nonetheless, it's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so we've talked about content, backlinks, blogs. So then finally, I ask everybody in this room to sign up for Google Analytics. Did that actually happen? Okay, so it's the easiest thing in the world, so I'm simply going to show it to you really quickly. So simply go to Google Analytics. And when you get there, oops, sorry, not there, there. So this is already logging into mine, so let me see if I can't just get to their initial website.
Just that.
Yeah. No, it won't let me actually get there. Let me do this. Let me log out.
When I did it with my school Gmail, it doesn't let me do it.
You don't want to do it with your school mail anyway. You want to actually do it with who you are on your website.
It says I don't have access to it.
I'll do it as my wife. Oh, fuck. Okay, so you didn't get to this page, Maddie?
No, it makes me like sign in, and then it says, "We are sorry, but you do not have access to analytics."
Do you have a Gmail account?
Yeah, but it's my Columbia one, is that why?
Yes, so you need to log into your Gmail account, not your Columbia account.
Okay, I only use Gmail for Columbia, so.
You can make up any Gmail in the world you want. Just do another Gmail account.
Just make a new one.
Right.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right, so at any rate, use it for free. You go through, if you click on this, it literally asks you like 5 questions, and then you're signed up for Google Analytics, and it says, what website do you want to analyze? And so that's what, so I'm going to go back to my page now to, hang on. Fuck. All right, hang on. Every time I do this, so I have an entire sheet of my passwords, and every time I record them and put them into a video, I've got to go in and edit the video.